Hi, everybody.
Hey there.
We're Nat and Mandy from the Infinite Me. We're exploring everything that it means to live through your infinite self and how to embody that in this world and have fun and play with it all.
Yay.
Yes. Yes. So yesterday's video, we talked all about the the trap, I guess, that we fall into sometimes, where we get caught sometimes in only expecting our guidance to come in one particular form, and then we just sort of seem to block out the rest of it, so we only see it coming in that form that we've attached ourselves to. So whether that was in the form of God or religion or angels or a guide that you particularly tap into. So we were just talking about how sometimes that can kind of block you from seeing everything else that's around you, that where the universe is actually trying to communicate with you constantly. So so if you want to jump back in, you can watch that episode from yesterday. So today we were just I just played a video clip, actually, which we were going to play live, but we just realized it's part of a paid program, so we probably can't do that. But it was from 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙨𝙤, who is a comedian turned spiritual teacher, if you like, and I was watching a video of his last night from a program he's got called Deep Down, and it was just this like cool 5-10 minute sort of clip that really just kind of jumped into his concept of I don't know how to sum it up, kind of around going with the flow of things, I guess, is kind of the best way to say it, and just like how we meet these decision points of either following what feels really light and expansive for ourselves, which is in the language that we'll be using is like that's your true infinite self coming through you and sort of telling you this feels more expansive, say yes to that option. Or we often fall into the trap of sort of choosing the heavy option, like we say, stuck in the mind, in the ego and what it knows, and it can measure it. So so I don't know where you might want to go. Do you want me to?
I think one of the first points you made was it's interesting that people sort of, things start to go wrong in life, sort of thing, like you're getting down to no money, or you've just lost a job, or your relationship's in the process of breaking up, say, and you sit there and you go, deep down inside, I know everything's going to be okay. And it's like, okay. And the point he was making was, and I feel it's like very true, is that deep down inside place seems to be
knowing that it's all okay. Yep.
Yeah, it seems to always be outside of you somewhere. You haven't quite got to that deep down inside place type thing. So you're talking about it as if it's a removed thing. But I thought it was a really cool point he was making was, what if you made deep down inside actually your home? Deep down inside actually is the infinite space. It's where everything is okay.
Yes.
So, but we're always sort of jumping out of it, going, sort of, yes, there's all this turmoil going on the outside and on the surface level of things, and in reality, it's all looking like it's all turning to shit, pretty much. But deep down inside, I sort of know that it's going to be okay. And it's like, well, why don't you just stay there in that deep down inside? Why deal with any of this on the surface level? Because the surface level stuff, as we've been talking about in the Infinite Me, is only a reflection of where you're at in your consciousness.
It's just a story which you can't actually change from that space. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, that's right. You have to change the underlying consciousness that projects and therefore creates the reality in the first place. So if you're in the reality and you're trying to change it, you're trying to fix your relationship because it's not working properly, or you're trying to work harder to get more money because the bank account is not showing what it should do according to you. All these things are going on. You're trying to work harder at work because you might lose your job. So all these things we're trying to fix, change, and improve on the outside world, forgetting that the inside world that we think is going to be all okay, we could just stay in that all okay and actually operate from that space.
From that space,
right from the very beginning, and that's the infinite space where it is okay. You're not going to be okay. Yes, you might lose your job, you might lose your relationship, you might not have any money, but you're still okay. You're actually nothing's happening to you at that point. And I guess that's really embodying the infinite self, when okay, I don't have any money right now, but you know what, I'm actually okay.
Yes.
Still breathing, I'm still operating, things are still functioning, the world is still functioning around me. Nothing has actually happened.
Yes. And I think the key point too he was making around that as well is that once you are in that space and operating from that space, that's when the thing that's trying to emerge from you, so this feeling that we've been talking about, this infinite feeling that moves through you, that's when you actually start to hear it and pay attention to it, and you'll make the decisions based from that space too. So like, okay, it may look like on the outside that the relationship's not going well, so you might actually choose in that moment to leave the relationship because it actually feels really heavy. So on the outside, your mind's trying to make it work all the time because at least it's comfortable and you know what to expect, or you're to and he had this really cool line actually, which I'll see if I can pull it up quickly, because it was just sort of such a good reflection of so saying this whole thing about moving towards what's light and letting go of the things that feel heavy. So he's saying the only reason we're scared of letting go of something heavy is because your mind can measure what you will lose and it can't see what you will gain. So it's just that idea of it's just the known factor all the time. Like we just stay in that space because at least we know. And I definitely used to live in that space of needing to know all the time. It was very mind-based, as we've talked about in a few other videos too, like constantly coming from this analyzing and projecting what's going to happen forward, and intellectualizing things but not actually moving sort of more into your heart space and living from that place and following the light feeling. But and he then gave an analogy of like sometimes that heavy place, it's because we're just not making a decision on something. So he sort of had this example of like, it's like when you're skydiving and you're standing on the edge of the plane about to make this big massive leap, it feels like, oh, this energizing kind of thing. But he said that's when you're actually the most scared. It's like you're standing on the edge looking over, ready, about to take that leap, but that's actually when you feel the most scared, which is actually when you're the safest because you're still in the plane. Like you haven't actually leapt out of the thing. And it was just so true. Yeah, because he's saying like you have these two things, you got these two decisions. So one's the heavy, one's the light feeling, and you don't know which one to go. And he said that's the place of stagnation when you haven't made the decision, and that's why it feels so heavy and it feels really scary because you haven't made a decision. And as soon as you make a decision, the other one falls away, and you have this kind of like a commitment, I guess, if you like, to I've made that decision. And you probably would, I can definitely feel that within myself when as soon as you make a decision, you just feel so much better about it because at least now you kind of have you can put your energy into that, rather than having this energy divided constantly. And that's where I guess procrastination and things come from. It just feels so heavy because you can't make a decision because you don't want to get it wrong, and you want to make sure you make the right decision, which is all coming from the head. So I just thought that was a really cool analogy about the place, you're making the decision is probably the safest place that you are in, but you haven't made it feels really unsafe because you haven't sort of made that commitment to move or grow or expand. So
that skydiving thing is awesome. Having done a skydive, I can 100% agree with him. Like, it's before you jump out of the plane, you're so shit scared, and then you jump out and it's just like everything, you forget about everything. Like, it's just the most amazing, freeing. It's like if you want to feel infinite, go skydiving. With a really good, decent free fall. Mine was like 60 seconds or something, and then all of a sudden it was like this jolt type thing, and I was like, "Whoa, what just happened? Like, oh my god, did we hit a bird or something?" And then I was like, "Oh, that's right, there's a parachute." Thank God I wasn't doing solo. I would have completely forgotten to pull the parachute. I was so in the moment of doing this free fall, having such an awesome time. And like had no idea what on earth had happened. Like, I seriously thought a bird had hit us, and it was like, oh, that's right, it's a parachute.
I haven't done skydiving, but even something I'm just thinking like abseiling or something like that I've done with you before. Like, is that kind of same thing? It's like you're standing on the edge, kind of going, oh, I've got to drop off into the
a little bit more. Get flat on the face.
Leap is like you don't know, there's nothing underneath you, so it's kind of you do have to take the leap and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to eventually come back in and hit the rock, but like I don't know, am I going to keep falling, am I going to like there's all those things that your mind thinks is going to happen. All those things, but like as soon as you do it, it's just like, oh, there's like a certainty that kind of steps in. Like it's so I thought that the skydiving thing is a really cool analogy. It's like
so let's all remember the skydiving analogy of like making a decision. Like, make the decision, make the damn decision, and then you're okay.
Yes. So, and the other thing, sorry, go ahead. No, you go. No, you go.
Yes, we are. We are the one person.
No, I insist. You go.
That's funny. So the other point I really got out of what he said was, oftentimes you don't get excited about a particular thing, or it's difficult to make a decision about a particular thing because you're thinking about it too small.
Yeah,
And
that's the point I was going to make, actually. That's quite funny.
we are
Yeah.
the one person. Yeah, so I was thinking about different projects and stuff like that, which we've found really difficult to make a decision about. And it's like going backwards and forwards. Should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? Or should we do this? Should we do that? Should we do this marketing? Not that marketing. And it's just really grungy and heavy, and like I just get to the point of just being really sick of it. But it has come up before where there's this real push to make it bigger, and this expansive feeling. You know, it would be, if I was going for like 1,000 people into this course right now, that would be really exciting type thing. But we're only going for like half a dozen or a dozen. So it's like a here we go again type thing, like grunge.
A bit arduous, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's really sludgy. But that suddenly, if it was like 1,000 people had to pull into that program, I was like, holy crap, how am I going to do that? Like, suddenly the mind is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and there's creativity and there's lightness, and it does feel a lot lighter, and it's so strange. It's so against all logic, because you would think, oh my God, that's going to be harder to pull off. But I feel that that's a real sign of the infinite. Is the infinite doesn't care how many people it is or what the number is of the money that you know, the dollar figure of the money you want and stuff like that. It's all same to the infinite. Like, it doesn't even fathom numbers and measurements of things at all. Like, it doesn't come into it. It's like, so when you take all of that stuff out of it, like how many numbers do I want to get into something, or how many dollars do I want to make? When you take that out, all that's left is an energetic field. So it's either heavy or light, and that's all you've got to go on. So it's sort of like, does it feel lighter to do 1,000 and more fun to do 1,000 people into this program, or does it feel lighter and better to have just 10 people?
Yes.
That's like, 1,000 things sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
It sounds more fun. It sounds like we would have.
And it's that it's all that feeling in your body. That's the true indicator of it. Yeah. So like 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙣𝙨 was talking about this kind of like a pivotal point, I guess, that kind of almost really launched his career into this kind of a bit more of a exponential trajectory, because he was already doing shows like live workshops and things like that. But he just said he reached this point where like they were having like 150 people at these workshops, and he said he just had this feeling like, I want to do 2,000. Like, it just sort of felt, and he said at that moment, he said it's like that decision point, your body splits into two, and it's kind of like, oh my God, that feels amazing. That feels really light. That feels really expansive. Yeah, let's do it. And the other part's just like, holy shit, I've never done but 2,000 people. We can't even fill 350 people. Like, how am I going to get 2,000 people? So like the mind immediately goes to the past, references what's happened before, brings forward your experience, and then bases everything based on what you already kind of know. Whereas this other side, this expansive feeling, he's saying the only reason it feels scary, and I've heard this sort of said by a few different people too, in all different kind of spiritual world, as well as also just physiologically as well, just saying it's only because your nervous system doesn't know what's going to happen. So that's why it feels kind of scary, because it's like a new space. You haven't been in that space before, because it's a new energy coming through you. So it's like your body kind of goes, oh, I'm not quite sure. But the feeling is kind of going, just go with it, like trust it, because it's pushing you into this new expansive state of, you've got to step into that. So it's like, which one do you go with? Do you go with like the expansive, oh my God, this feels amazing? Or do you go with the other side, which is the, oh, but I know, you know, okay, it might not be working, but like, at least I know that, you know, I can count on that income, or I can count on those people showing up, or I can, whatever, you know, your mind's going to tell you in that scenario.
Safe space. Yeah, I like that point about the nervous system, because you do feel really nervous and almost sick sometimes if it's really full on. And I think that's where time stuff starts to come in for me. It's like, if I have a long period of time to pull it off, then I feel like I can do it. If I have a short space of time to pull that off, then that's where it gets really freaky for me. So that's where the time thing again comes up, of like, oh my God, that belief really is quite time-based. But yeah, the whole nervous system actually not even being programmed at that point for that particular experience for you. it has to shift and change. And if we know that the body is the most densest part of form of us, it does take a little while to catch up. So sometimes that's where meditation or just sitting still. I don't meditate so much. I guess it is a form of meditation, but I just sort of, sometimes I just feel like I need to stop. Stop moving. Like, I mean, I know I travel full time, so sometimes that might be part of it as well. Moving countries all the time can be quite disruptive. So, but other times I just feel like I need to be still with no stimulation whatsoever around me and just stop.
Which is like a meditation, as you said.
And I guess that's where I feel like the body's catching up to what's going on around me, to enable me to have this new experience, sort of thing. So.
And so you can tap into that feeling as well, because oftentimes when you are moving around all the time, your mind's constantly engaged in everything, the stimulation and the judgment and everything else that's going on. And so that, bringing yourself to that stillness point, you can tap into that feeling a lot more and kind of go, well, does this feel light or does this feel heavy? And you say, like, he's given a really cool example of, like, just to show you how much your brain will go for the heavy feeling. That's just so automatic. It's just like you've got a group, you've got some friends that you don't chat with very often. Like, every couple of years you might kind of connect, but it just feels so light and you just pick up exactly where you left off. And it's like, I know I've got a couple of friends exactly like that. It just feels like you just spoke yesterday, but it could literally be 2 years since you spoke. And then he said that you've got this bunch of other friends that you kind of see pretty regularly, and like, that, like, they're going to be right on your back if you don't call them, and they're going to get like, oh, why haven't you called me, and why didn't you show up here? And so he said, so which group of friends do you call? He goes, you call those ones. You call the ones that are on your back, because you know that they're going to, like, get on you about not calling them. And so, but they're the ones that are sort of saying, well, you're not showing up how I want you to show up, but you try to conform to please them.
Try to appease them.
So it's just like, it's just an example, like, you choose that heavy state over the light, expansive state because for whatever reason you don't want to make the decision to let those friends go, or you're just not conscious of it. Like, it's just, you go to appease the ego all the time, like, to satisfy that feeling, like, to get rid of that heavy feeling, if you like, to move from it.
It is interesting though, isn't it? Like, you do gravitate towards the heavy stuff, and it's almost like the light stuff, it's too easy. I've definitely felt that at times. It's like, this is flowing too well. It's too easy. It's like,
the ego can definitely get a hold of that and kind of go, this would be boring if it's too easy. Or I've definitely had that happen before. It's like, oh, if everything just flowed, then that would be boring. It's just like, okay, that's really interesting judgment to have. But also, I think that unknown, I think it's the unknown factor more than anything, because it's something feels heavy, but at least you know it. Whereas the light feeling, it's almost like, well, I actually don't know what to do right now with that, because then maybe that's true, because your body hasn't had that feeling before. So you suddenly have a thought of like, wow, I want to, the example you were saying, I want to put a course out for 1,000 people, not 6 people. So your mind kind of goes, well, I don't really have any reference point for 6,000 people. 1,000 people. Like, I don't really quite know what to do. What would I do with that kind of thing? So if you engage that part of you, it probably feels like, well, at least I know how to, service 6 people, not 1,000 people. Like, it's kind of, so I think sometimes that could be potentially why a little bit too, we sort of gravitate to it's just known, like, it's a known factor and we can do it, even if it feels heavy,
Funny this is coming up actually, because one thing I was thinking to talk to you today about, which I haven't told you about, I was having a conversation with Jody earlier, because with our house sitting, I've been house sitting now around the world for like 6 years, and swear to God, it is the easiest part of our life, and has been ever since we started. So, but it's just so interesting to observe it, because we literally go back to back house sits from country to country. Like, and if you looked at our travel schedule type thing, we literally finish one house sit and we travel for a day, like to a new country or wherever, and we start the next house sit. And it's like, there is no way on this planet Earth that we could actually coordinate that to happen if we were logically trying to do it. Like, it would just be impossible to actually work that out. So in like 6 years, we've had something like 97% free accommodation around the world through house sitting. And it's like, how do you have 97% of house sits? Like, it's like 3% downtime because everybody asks us, so what do you do in between sits? It's like, we actually do not have
Yeah.
in between sets.
We
Like,
get asked
literally,
that a lot
like,
too.
"Okay."
We've had the same thing for about 3 years. I mean, we're not traveling internationally, but just
Yeah.
in Tasmania. But we've had virtually the same thing happen, where it just flows, and people
It
say, "Oh,
just
how does that?"
flows.
Oh, people must be picking the dates around when you're available, and you're like, "No, not
No.
always. Sometimes it
Yeah.
is, but like most of the time, no. It just works itself out. Like it's just you don't get engaged in it, and it
Freaky.
just works."
So
Yeah.
it's sort of like, okay, what so I guess I was trying to analyze it this morning. It's like, so what is happening there
Yeah.
for that to happen, sort of thing? Like,
Yeah.
we have such a known certainty type thing. Like yesterday, I completely changed the plans on Jody, and I was supposed to be going speaking at a conference, and I pulled out of it, which meant that I've now got a space. She'll be off during the conference, and I had a space where I wouldn't be house sitting.
Yeah.
So, but what I was feeling was I wanted a longer house sit because I wanted to get into our stuff more. Like,
Yes.
so moving around all the time, this sort of last period and this next short period is actually quite disruptive. So it was like, I'm really feeling like I need to be settled for a good 2 or 3 months somewhere
Yeah.
before we head to Canada. So I was like, I don't know where it is. It just feels like it's sort of in a colder place. I don't feel like to go to Mexico. It'd be easy to go to Mexico and say rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
There. And it's like, no, it's not there. It's somewhat cooler. But that's what I'm looking for. So I checked all the house sitting platforms, didn't see anything. Nothing sparked on dates and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. I was like, oh, that's cool. It will come up. So there's
Yeah.
a real certainty that goes on at that point for both of us,
Yes.
as it does for you, man, where it's
Yeah.
like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
There will be a house sit that will show up
Yeah.
for those perfect dates. Like it's
Yeah.
happened time and time again. I absolutely 100% know that it will.
Yes.
So sure enough, I wake up this morning and Jody goes, oh, are you awake enough for me to get the computer and show you something? And I said, oh, yeah, okay. So pulls it up, and overnight, somehow or another, she's been awake and actually applied for a house sit in Belgium. And he's written back pretty much straight away and said, yep, love your profile, let's do it. It's like, so I've woken up 2.5 months in Belgium in the countryside. I was like, okay. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, I didn't even do anything. I was asleep.
Yeah.
But it's like,
well, you had that feeling, you put the feeling out there of what you're wanting, and then the universe.
So that's all it was. I followed the feeling, and
changes.
I was really certain about that feeling. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm really strong on this feeling right now of wanting something longer. And I was feeling that just in the last few days, we've had a lot of city sits. So we've had, Bangkok, and we've had Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and like big city stuff, Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City. Now we're here in Penang. It's sort of like, oh my God, there's like so much energy around us all the time with the cities and stuff. Next we go to Paris, and it's like back into the middle of the city again. Awesome. But it's like, oh my God, I'm feeling like I need to get away. I've been thinking about you in Tasmania, thinking, oh, that'd actually be really nice right now, like to take a sit that's a little bit more country. And sure enough, this thing is in the country for Belgium.
Yeah.
It's in a small town. So it's like, oh my God, the exact thing that I was looking for actually showed up.
Showed up. Yeah.
So it's like, what is that state? That certainty that I have a total expectation, not on myself, on the infinite, that it will provide exactly as I need. And sure enough, it's showing up.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this expectation becomes like a belief, I guess, like
it's like a certainty, a trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also the expectation is not on me. I don't expect to create the set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if I think about money, which we're usually getting pretty short of, so this is something that I haven't felt like I've stepped into my infinite space of at all. Still is quite challenging in many ways. So there's a lot, obviously, power that's still in the whole money system for me. And it's like, so what's my state with money? And it's like, it's almost like I feel I've got to create it.
Yeah.
There's still this connection to, I haven't let that go, in total trust that I do to a lot degree, but I still feel like it's quite connected. And money's a bit of a catch one anyway, because we have such a construct.
It's a big one. Yeah.
Come from doing something or providing something.
Yeah.
This whole bartering system that goes on now with money. So I have to provide goods or services. and I'll get money in return type thing. So
Yes.
therefore I have to be in business, working a job, being a freelancer,
Productive
whatever
all
it
the
is,
time.
I've got to be doing something. Whereas that's, as I know, is not true. You know, house sits come from anywhere type thing. Yes, they come through the platforms or through a referral, but they've come from the infinite. Like that one was not there last night, like yesterday when I went looking. And suddenly
We've had experiences of that happening too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it only had been up an hour. Somehow Jody woke up literally in the middle of the night. You know, sort of 1 or 2 in the morning. Got on the platforms for some unknown reason, and found it.
Yes.
Like, okay, that's really bizarre.
Well, we had that exact thing happen with us when when we came to Tasmania, we actually came for 2 months with the intention to then go to another state, and we'd actually had a house sit lined up for a friend, another state, and we just weren't feeling like, I guess it comes back to this whole heavy feeling and light feeling. Every time we thought about this commitment that we'd made to this friend for 4 months, we just were not feeling it. It was just like, oh, we really wish we weren't going. Like, and we really would love to stay in Tasmania because it felt so at home for us. And so ended up, as it transpired, had a conversation with this friend about the logistics of doing the sit, and they ended up coming back with some kind of conditions, I guess, that it was more just like a misunderstanding on their part of what house sitting actually is. Like, it's an exchange of services, and they wanted kind of all this money for certain things, and it's kind of like, this is not how house sitting works. Like, we're providing you a service, and this is, you know, what we're providing. And so we just went, no, you know, it's not feeling good, and she wasn't feeling it either, and she sort of pulled the pin on it. And, you know, and we were kind of like, actually, we feel really good about it. We were actually quite happy. It was actually coming out quite soon. It wasn't like it was like months and months away. We were already in Tasmania at that stage, and was probably 3 weeks away or something like that. And so for a while, we've been kind of going, oh, we really would love to go up to Cradle Mountain, which is a really part of the wilderness area, I guess, in Tasmania, World Heritage area. And it's a very big tourist draw card, and there's amazing walks up there and things like that. And we kept feeling like, oh, we really would love to go there. And so I went to bed that night, and we're kind of going, oh, we're really glad the sit didn't come up. And then literally I got up next morning, a house sit had popped up right near Cradle Mountain for the exact date that we needed, like the exact date that we could go from this one to that one and just start. And we had like 3 weeks there or something. And then from there, we just stayed in Tasmania. It just kept unfolding and unfolding. But it was just like that, just that true example of just following what feels light. Okay, in that instance, we didn't turn around and say no to that friend, which would have been actually following the true feeling. So, but there was enough awareness there to kind of go, this is not feeling heavy. And there was this like weight of commitment going, oh, but it's a friend, and we probably should do it. Maybe if it wasn't a friend, we might have like probably pulled out. But because it was quite a good friend, we're like, oh no, we should do it. It will be okay. It would actually still have been an okay experience, but it just didn't feel as exciting as the Cradle Mountain one and staying in Tasmania. But it is just funny how that, and I actually had that exact thing happen last night, like what you've just had too. We had a week gap in October to fill. Not sort of concerned about it, but just kind of going, oh, okay, if we say yes to this one, it's going to leave us with a week to fill. And then I text one of the homeowners that we're sort of lining up for September, October, and I was just checking in with the dates with her because we'd had already committed but months ago. And then she's just like, oh, yeah, actually, I would like to extend it by a week if you guys are available. And it was like, okay, there's that week. It's just like literally overnight. I got that text message back from her really late last night, like, and it was just like, woke up this morning, confirmed it with her. It's like, bang, there it is. Like, it's just that, it is that expectation, that certainty in what's going to happen in that part of our life. And we have the same thing. The flow just happens in that part of our life. But then you can look at other parts, like what you said, money, or it had been showing with time for me, which is a lot bigger paradigms for a lot of people. For I think most people probably tap into that money one for sure. It runs a lot of our decisions. So but it is that thing. It's like, what is, I've done that too. It's just like, what is that makes this part of my life run so smoothly, and this part over here sort of doesn't. Like, I haven't quite mastered that sort of, following the feeling as much in that area, or trusting, or exactly like what you said, you feel like it has to come from you, as in the little you has to kind
That's what I feel like it might be.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely 100% that, because it's like every time you feel like you've got to make something happen, it has to be the finite ego part of you that feels that part, because the infinite doesn't feel like it has to do anything. Like, it just flows, like it just, the feeling comes, you do it, you bang, like you act on it, like it's.
Yeah, and then the agendas come straight in. And I think that's what I'm becoming more and more, because we're doing these sorts of conversations, I'm becoming so much more aware of it. the agendas are coming up. And it's like, I'm just repelling it straight away. It's like,
yes,
no, I don't want a bar of it. I do not want to touch that stuff.
yes,
So that then creates the quandary as well, because it's like, that's your old life of buying into the things that used to work.
yes,
but I also think you reach a point where your consciousness becomes so aware of the agendas that when you do buy into an agenda still, and you move along in the process of, you know, I'm doing this to make money, or I'm doing this to make more friends, or to have more recognition, or whatever it is, because the awareness is there that you're actually doing it for that reason,
yes,
it almost like it doesn't work as well.
yes,
Like, it's not as effective as it used to be.
yeah. It's trying to wake you up to that point, of like, there's an agenda driven here, and it's you're not paying attention to it still, so it sort of like turns the anti almost.
Yeah, and I did get an email from Amir today, Amir Zogi, and I thought it was interesting because he was talking about agendas, because we've been talking about this morning, and his point was follow through on the agenda, but do it with absolute presence,
awareness,
and awareness that you're doing it for that reason. And then through that process, because sometimes you can't get past it, like, and if the money is really tight, particularly, then it's hard not to be an agenda. Like, everything you sort of move towards, you go, oh, there's an agenda there. I'm trying to make more money. I'm trying to manipulate this, or trying to mold this in a certain way to get this outcome. Like, you're always going for an outcome type thing. So it's like, well, if you can't get past that, then just step into that, but with full knowledge. And I know 𝘾𝙤𝙣𝙨 Low, his sister, Bondi Guru, also does this as well. It's like, it's okay to be an ego, and it's okay to have an agenda, but do it with full consciousness. And then through the process of doing that, it will actually drop away. It will change and shift into what it needs to, so that it can become more authentic for you type thing.
So it's almost like when you go into the thing knowing it's an agenda, with the awareness, as you said, the full awareness that it's an agenda, it's like then you consciously get to see the thing that needs to come up for you to see. And so just by the actual witnessing of it, the awareness of it, it falls away. Whereas when you go into something with, not aware that there's an agenda driving, that's just the ego, it's still going to keep running you because you can't see it yet. Like, it's kind of, that's what it feels like a bit too. It's like, go into it. Sometimes you do have to do something knowing full well that you're doing it specifically for money. But if you're aware that that's your reason for doing it, you almost feel like it doesn't feel as arduous when you go into it. Like, it's like, oh, well, I know I'm doing it for that. It's like you're being honest, really honest with yourself about, there's an agenda behind that. And that's okay too. And then everything, as you said, that else that will come up in that process will just feel like it's being released, rather than you holding on to it still, and it still feeling like it's running you.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, going in, because subconsciously you're always going to know there's an agenda there, but it's almost like you convince yourself it's not there. No, I'm really doing this because I want to help people.
I love it.
I really do love this. I'm really going to love doing this particular project.
And some of that might be true. Like, some of there's usually multi-layered.
It is, and it is multi-layered. This is the thing that we're facing right now, is we want to put on a challenge. And it's like, I do feel it was a completely inspired thought about 2 or 3 weeks ago to actually run a challenge for this stuff. And I was like, oh, that'll be really fun. So I got really excited about it, and I made moves towards it. I built sort of the product and bits and pieces that were needed for it. Then it became a little bit arduous, and we're sort of toing and froing about it and stuff like that. But I guess I'm sort of at that precipice point right now type thing, is like, we need the money out of it in the storyline. But also, I think the excitement is back for it as well, for running the actual challenge itself. Like, and just so my focus becomes on the actual challenge itself, which is the fun part of it. And then,
not the outcome of that.
And then whatever happens from there, like, I trust that it will do it, and it will go okay. And we'll get whatever funds we're meant to get from it, we will get. Like, it's not like I can change the outcome type thing of what will come from that.
It's an unknown factor right now. So
it doesn't really matter. Like, I can't change it anyway. So it's like, well, I might as well just do what feels fun, which is the challenge. And focus on that. Focus on helping people in that challenge and having some fun with it. And it'll just sort of unfold as it unfolds. Like whatever the outcome is, will be
Yes.
what it is.
So I guess that's going back to the point that 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙪 was making that we were talking about before. It's like the mind wants to go to the certainty of something that you've done before, and that's where I guess the agendas kind of come in, because it knows what will, or can predict what might happen based on what's happened in the past or that type of thing. But for you, the only true thing right now is like do the challenge. So all the possibilities held in that feeling of do the challenge. So you don't, your mind doesn't actually know yet what's going to unfold from that. So as long as you just stay in that feeling of doing the challenge, because that's the part that feels fun and light and expansive, then the rest can just unfold from there, rather than the mind sort of getting a hold of what might happen, or this might happen, or I could do this, or kind of staying out of the strategy, unless that feels true, you know, to do something around that in the strategy. But it's just staying with that feeling of following the challenge, and that's it. Like that's all you need to do, and all the creativity that's tied up in that, and the energy is what's going to open the possibility for whatever else is going to come out of that. So
I think the other thing I really enjoyed in that video, he said, was like taking that leap. So in my instance, say doing this challenge, in making that decision to take the leap, you don't know what's going to happen, but within that leap is so many opportunities and possibilities. And so he told the story of going for it, like he was about to announce on stage about their package, you know, come and work with us type thing. And as he was doing the content and stuff before he got to the pitch, there was a part of him that it was going backwards and forwards. He said there was this whole argument going on inside him while he was delivering his content. And it was whether to make this offer or not. And all logic said to do it. They're going to make like $2.5 million from making this offer.
Because this was that leap. He'd gone from 150 people to like an audience of 2,000 people. So based on their percentage of what had happened before, he was projecting it out, going, okay, we normally convert 10 to 20% of the audience. So therefore, extrapolate that out. That's $2.8 million. So that's kind of what you're saying. Like his mind was going between.
So it's like, of course you're going to do that. But then there was part of him that was saying, don't do it. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like, I've got all this team of people waiting, like all the forms are done, like everything was organized to make this offer to this audience. And he decided not to do it at the last minute. So when he got off stage, everyone's like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? But then as it unfolded through the storyline, the stuff that actually happened as a result of that leap, that decision, was massive. Like they got on radio stations, they got their own TV show, they got, like, what else did they get? Like there was just a whole bunch of things.
I was just saying his I guess his reach with people, like videos that they started creating started having like 26 million views and things, like something that was just like, it just exponential growth, because he chose to step into that possibility of, and it came from a simple decision of like, I would like to speak in front of 2,000 people, not 150, which was completely out of their, out of his
league,
and also like possibility thinking, I suppose, because they were struggling to fill 150. So how would you go to 2,000 people? Like that just feels like ridiculous. Why would you do that? And obviously he had to put money down to secure a space for 2,000 people. So there was this like big money commitment, but it felt light. And so it all came out of that leap to follow that feeling, even though you don't know how it was going to unfold. And then he's ended up with the career he's kind of got now because he took that leap and got the following.
It was launchpad, wasn't it? Like that's what it said, was because he decided, so he made that leap to speak to more people, but then made the second big leap, which was to not make the pitch about the retreats. That's right. It was about retreats. So that would have filled up his diary with retreats for like an entire year. So he would have been speaking to X number of people. You can only have so many people on a retreat. But then all of a sudden he decided not to make that offer, and then everything exploded, and suddenly he was in front of millions of people.
Yes, which is what the true feeling for him was, is like, I want to impact a lot more people, not small groups. That was the true feeling that was coming through, which is where that feeling of, I want to speak in front of 2,000 people, not 150, that was the initial feeling, and then it exploded into everything else that's kind of unfolding. And he said the biggest thing that showed up for him in all of that was how everything else just flowed from that one leap, because he followed the true feeling and let everything else go that felt heavy. And he said, I've never not had that happen. Like it's just this absolute trust that as soon as I follow the light feeling and let the heavy stuff go, it just unfolds. Like all the creativity is tied up in that energy, which I guess comes back to that point you were saying about the how come this part of my life flows and this part doesn't so much. It's probably almost that, I guess, if we went back into because I could do the same too for parts of my life, and I'm sure everyone can relate to that. It's just if you go back into that part of your life that does feel like it's flowing, so maybe that's a relationship for you, or maybe it is your money and your business, but maybe your relationship doesn't work. It's kind of like everyone will probably have an area, or your health perhaps, or with maybe your family.
You struggle with.
Yeah, could be showing up in your family, like you just don't have a really great relationship with your family. That feels really heavy. So it's just, it's kind of interesting if you go back and you did look at, not sort of from an analytical point of view, but just kind of going, okay, why do I feel like I can let that part of my life flow, but I can't let this part of my life flow? Like, where am I not following that feeling that's coming through, or not even listening to that feeling? Maybe you're not even aware of the feeling because you're so caught up in the managing it, the micromanaging it, and trying to, the agendas behind it. Yeah.
Have enough of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think this was coming up for, I was saying to Nat last night, I was just feeling a little bit agitated. I was about time to go to bed, and I was just like, I'm feeling a bit like this energy was kind of just in me of like something wanting to come through, and I didn't quite know what it was. And it was kind of a little bit triggered yesterday by Nat and I had been sort of talking about some to-dos that, for this Infinite Me project that we're doing, and some of the behind the scenes things that we're thinking to do. And I kind of just wasn't feeling them yesterday. I was like, oh, well, I could do that, but I'm really not feeling called to it. Like, it was an easy task. It was nothing, that big, but I just wasn't feeling that call to do it. And I was feeling this energy of like, oh, we're making this kind of hard. Like, this feels like it's a bit like, and it feels small. That was probably the feeling if I was to label it, but I didn't realize that at the time. And then I happened to be really guided to watch this 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙨 video late last night, because I was really following this feeling of like, no, I really want to watch something. It feels really expansive, and for some reason his name popped into my head, so I logged into the site that I've got, and I've just picked something that felt really intuitive, and watched that. And that's the clip that we've been talking about. All these points come out of it. Just like, okay, that was it. It was too small. Like, it feels like some of the things that we've been talking about, it's too small, and there's this other thing that wants to come through, which we've both felt, and we've been kind of talking about that and honoring it in many ways. Like, we've already shifted a bunch of things, even just in the last 20, 25 days that we've been doing these videos. But there's something else that kind of wants to come through. And it's just like, I think that's why that other stuff feels kind of arduous, because it's too small. Like, it's not sort of honoring the creativity that's wanting to actually come through us right now. So we don't know what that thing is yet. Like, it's just kind of sitting with that feeling now, but knowing that there is something that's wanting to emerge. And it is this leap. It feels like it will be a leap, and all the possibility is tied up in that leap. But we don't need to know what that is and how it's going to unfold. Yeah.
Just why we don't. Who knows?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that was really cool. I enjoyed that.
Yep. Well, let us know in the comments if you can relate to anything that we've been speaking about, or you've had that experience of taking that leap and how something cool's unfolded for you, or you just know that there is a leap that's calling you and you're not taking it. That's also can be a space through.
Whatever you're like, can you feel the difference? Have you felt the difference
Yeah.
in different things before? Can you tune in now into something and go, okay, this part really flows for me all the time. Like, my relationship is fantastic, or I get my job, I just absolutely excel at, and get promotion after promotion. I've never had to try for it. Yes. I guess that's the thing. The infinite. There is no try. It's just doing something. It's doing something, not doing something. It's the age-old Yoda conversation.
Yes, there is no try.
There's only do, not do, Luke.
Yeah.
That is tapping into the infinite. That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
So it's like, the more we attuned we can be to feeling into what does it feel like to be light as opposed to heavy, and the only way you're going to know light is to know the heaviness as well, and vice versa. Yes. So we have to have contrast to know. So that's why it is showing up in your life. Maybe my money stuff is showing up because of that. So I can actually do the contrast between light and heavy. I know which one feels heavy, which one feels light. So I can gravitate more towards the light then, knowing, okay, now I know what that feels like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you don't know that feeling in your body unless you've experienced it. So it's kind of, you've got no reference point otherwise. So
yeah, maybe the heaviness, the challenges in certain areas of your life are showing up to actually show you the contrast, so that you can go, you know what, I'm making more decisions towards the light side now. I know what that feels like.
Yes.
And I'm actually okay with it. I know it works out. It actually works out better than the heavy stuff.
Yes.
So I can create more of that in my life now. I can make conscious decisions towards it.
And if you do look at, say, an area of your life that is working versus one that, you know, in your mind is not working, or just not flowing, and you probably, if you do step back and look, like, say, for example, we were talking about house sitting. If I look back and think about that, there is just that feeling of a house sit comes up, or a suggestion of, you know, we've got quite a network of people now. So somebody comes up with a suggestion of some dates, and there's an immediate feeling, if I think about it, of like, yeah, it feels like a yes, or no, that's a no. Like, it's kind of, there is like a definite feeling in my body of that one feels really good. I can see where I've done some out of obligation before, which would be a heavy feeling. So I've definitely got a sense now of trusting that intuition of what is a yes and what's a no. But then if I was to apply that to other areas of my life where I can see I go against that feeling, because my mind gets a hold of it and it's like, oh, but I don't know, I'm not sure. And if I look at my bank account, I've only got X in it, so I better make a decision based on that, because that would be irresponsible. And you know, 2 weeks down the line, I've got this bill, so I better make sure I've got that. And it's like, well, that's 2 weeks away. So there's that whole time factor that comes into it. It's just like anything can change in an instant. So so you can see how it gets really complicated. And so maybe perhaps that could be a good exercise for everybody to kind of do, is look at an area of life that's flowing really well, and then one that maybe isn't, and kind of just feel the difference, like feel how you show up different. How do you follow your intuition? How do you not follow your intuition?
Analyze it a little bit. Like, it's not about doing heaps of processing, but to sit back and analyze it. Like, and that's all I felt like I was doing this morning. It was like, what's the difference then? There's got to be a difference going on. And I said that to Jodie. I said, like, what is the difference?
Yeah, bringing the awareness to it.
Yeah, it's like, and so that's what I came up with. That expectation is like expectation on the infinite flow, expectation on myself. No. Constant struggle.
Yes, and the expectation, because expectation is kind of is probably an ego construct too. So when you say expectation in the universe, it's probably, I don't know what the right word for it is, but it has a different feel to when you have an expectation. It's not really an expectation in that way. It's like a knowingness, like it's
more a belief. And that's what I was pinpointing as well, is like, and I said that to Jodie. I said expectation is actually not the right word. That's funny you say that. And I said it's different to the expectation like you would have on somebody or on yourself type thing, where it's more the expectation becomes the belief, like the knowingness, and that thing is always going to show up for you.
Yes,
that certainty point. Yeah, no, it's true. There's actually a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. And again, the languaging makes it hard. That's but I think everyone could probably feel the difference in that too. It's just like, when you have a knowingness about something, it is sort of an expectation that it's going to work out okay, but it's not in the same sense of an expectation that somebody's got to show up exactly how you want them to be, otherwise you're going to be annoyed. You know, that it is a different. So if someone comes up with a better word for it, that'd be great. Let us know. So
let us know another word for expectation when it comes from the infinite self. Where it's more a knowingness. You expect something to show up because you just know it will. Yeah,
and maybe it is knowingness. Yeah, maybe that's the word. I don't know. But okay. Cool.
There you go. Very cool.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and hope you get a lot out of this. Leave us a comment and let us know, what did you get out? What was the biggest thing you got out of today? What triggered for you?
Yes.
There were some really key points, I think, today. So
I think so too. Yep.
Lots of stuff. Yeah, so that's really cool.
Yes.
Good one. All right. We'll see you all again tomorrow.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.